So let's go back to the home screen. And now you can see the different notes that were put into the calendar. Paid in full, mortgage amount was paid, and there was partial payment, we didn't clear that out, and then paid in full. Go back to the property summary. We'll go back to the edit and delete in here, self-explanatory. This is the Craigslist advertisement. Run through this real quick. Now if I was taking my time, I would go through this very thoroughly and in a brief property description add a lot more detail. You'd want to put everything you would put in a normal Craigslist ad. We'll just do this for now. And we'll do T. Alright, so now once you have that filled out, it's saved and stored in your phone. You hit submit, puts it into that box. You select the box, get the blinking, hold your finger over it, select all, copy. Alright, now if you go to post, you get the typical Craigslist. Oops. You go through the posting and you paste your advertisement into the Craigslist. So now we go back to home screen. Miles allows you to track all of your miles that you've accumulated based on property. So say if there was a list, you would have multiple houses to choose from. But say yesterday I drove to 2345 Gary, and that is 16 miles round trip, and the reason was rental or shoes hardware store. Actually, I'm sorry, we'll do rental. Let's go to Gary, and you hit save. And that allows you to track your miles for that particular property. Go back, and it will show you based on what option you're choosing, rental, hardware store, realtor, bank, other, it will graph out where you're driving and show you, and that will go for each property that you own. We'll do that. Say you get a call and you want to know real quick what rentals you have available. You hit rentals available, and because that box on my property is checked, it will not show this Gary property is available. But if you uncheck it and go back to home, rentals available, it shows you exactly what property is available. You can go through and quickly see the specs on it and share those with whoever's calling you to inquire about the home. If you have multiple properties, this helps out tremendously. And then you go into settings. It's the last function. Here you can set the vacancy rate. to whatever you want to include in your cash flow. And then you also can set the website that you advertise to. Default is Craigslist. And then at the end of the year, when you want to reset, say you want to reset all your data, all your financial information, all your expenses, you hit reset all. If you want to do it just for a month, you set the month, and you'll hit reset just that month for all the properties. Now this is the important part. All the information that you collect during the year is stored in this export reports. So you export it. Oops. Go export reports here. Yes. So you have to use your mail account. The other mail account I didn't have set up. But here you can see it says landlord statement, property address, total rent collected, repairs, date, description, price, total. That's the heading. And these are all separated by a comma, which we have an Excel import function that follow the steps, and it will import it and put it all in a nice, neat columns. So when it comes to tax time, you can add these all up and do it real quick to input for each specific property according to how if you've ever used TurboTax, everything's separated by property, and then these different categories: miles, expenses, repairs. So it makes everything kind of organized in the way that you would input it into your TurboTax. I should point out there's also, it shows rent collected. So each month that rent's collected, it'll show you what you've collected for that month, which helps out sometimes where if you had somebody move out in the middle of the month, you don't necessarily always track that on your files. This, you input it, say what you collected, and it's there. So we go back to home. And that's pretty much all the functionality. You can add events to the calendar so that if you wanted to, say, on the 17th showing, it will be saved showing at Gary. And these 3 areas down below are all editable, and they are based on the first 3 events that are happening soonest in time. That concludes the introduction to the Landlord app. Thank you for your interest.
Welcome to Camtasia Studio 7. If you're new to Camtasia Studio and you want to get started quickly, you're in the right place. We encourage you to watch this 5-minute video to learn the basics of using the editor, including how to navigate the timeline, make some basic edits, and add special effects. The preview window is where you see the video during playback. The playback controls are located under the preview window. In fact, the video you're watching in the preview window is a sample project playing directly from the timeline you see below. After you watch this video, we hope you take some time to practice what you've learned using the content on the timeline. So let's start with the timeline. This is where you assemble and edit your videos. At the top of the timeline, tick marks represent time in terms of minutes and seconds. When building a video, you'll work in a horizontal manner, beginning from the left and moving sequentially through time towards the right. To make precise cuts and selection, use the zoom slider to magnify the view of the timeline. And when adding elements to your video, such as a call-out or audio clips, these are placed on different tracks. Tracks are created automatically, when you need them, when elements are added to the timeline. So depending on your video, you may be working with several tracks at one time. To change the position of an element on the timeline, just drag it. To change the length of an element, drag the edges in either direction. An important part of the timeline is the playhead. The playhead moves the timeline and indicates the current frame displayed in the preview window. To view your video, click play in the preview window. Notice how the video and the timeline's playhead stay in sync? Click anywhere on the timeline and the playhead moves to that point. The green section of the playhead is called the in point. Click and drag the in point to make the beginning of a selection. The red section of the playhead is called the out point. Just click and drag the out point to make the end of a selection. To bring the sections of the playhead back together, double-click the gray playhead. To split a video clip, position the playhead at the desired location and click the split button. And if you want to remove a portion of your video, make a selection with the in and out points, then click the cut button. If you make a mistake while editing, click the undo button. Next, we'll look at the clip bin and the library. The clip bin holds recordings, audio files, images, and title slides being used in the project you're currently working on. Then there's the library. It stores video clips, intros, callouts, title slides, and other elements that you want to use from project to project. The library is also pre-populated with professional animations, music, sound effects, and other content you can use in your video for free. To add your own clips or video sequences to the library, make a selection on the timeline, right-click, and choose Add to Library. To include clips and other elements in your video, drag them from the clip bin or library and drop them onto the timeline. The tabs located above the timeline are task pages used for adding and editing special effects. You can add callouts to emphasize a key point. You can insert a transition between clips for a professional look. Apply zoom and pan effects to focus on important details. And draw attention to the cursor by changing the color, size, and more. If you double-click an element on a track, the playhead moves to the beginning of that element, and its task page opens, allowing you to make edits to that element. So we've shown you a few ways you can navigate and edit your video. But how do you get content into your video? Well, to make a new screen recording, click the Record Screen button. If you already have an audio or video recording to use, click the Import Media button. When you've made edits and added effects to your video and you're ready to share it, you need to produce the project to create a shareable video. Click the Produce and Share button, step through the wizard, and Camtasia Studio creates a viewer-friendly, shareable MP4 file ready to upload to screencast.com, your blog, or a website. Well, it's time for you to try Camtasia Studio out for yourself using the content on the timeline. The help file in Camtasia Studio will help you use each of the Camtasia Studio features and applications. The Learning Center on TechSmith.com has in-depth video tutorials and other sample projects to download and practice with. So we hope you enjoy Camtasia Studio. And happy screencasting!